Welcome to another edition of Patriots No Huddle, brought to you by PatsFans.com. Derek Havens, Mike Diabate, Steve Bals, Jerry, your host. As always, we are here to do a Super Bowl recap show as the Patriots fell to the Seattle Seahawks 29-13. Last night, we're recording this Monday, February 9th, right around 2:15 Eastern Time. Before we start anything, again, please do check out PatsFans.com. A lot of great content led by Ian Logue. And I also want to go ahead and be sure that everyone subscribes, likes, shares, leaves us a review on Apple, Spotify. Even check out hit that subscribe button on YouTube. It keeps us high in those rankings. Other Patriots fans can follow us, grow the show. We sincerely appreciate that. And thank you to the folks that have listened to the show throughout the season, following along. Gentlemen, there's so much to unpack about this game. Obviously, fans are going to be, disappointed. I think everyone's kind of feeling probably similar emotions, but there's just a whole rush of everything going on. So before we do anything, Steve, how we doing, man? Give me your just initial take of that.
Hey, I mean, look, I watched the game. It was a very disappointing end to a great season, because that was the only time this year that they really, and it happens. It happens, right? So, kudos to the Seahawks. They were the better team last night. Their defense, they dominated the Patriots in a way that I didn't think they would be able to do with 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah,
but they definitely did that, and the Patriots defense, I thought, played pretty well. They had some issues setting the edge for Kenneth Walker. But overall, I mean, I thought the defense really, especially there was a couple of guys I wrote about in my post game, Craig Woodson, Christian Gonzalez, I thought more than anybody stood out big time. And, it was just one of those things. This was the Seahawks night, and they kicked the Patriots' butt pretty good.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, for me, I felt very good as a fan. From a fan side, going into this game, I thought the Patriots really matched up well. I was concerned about the Patriots' offensive line and the Seattle front, just as I was previously in other difficult matchups and tough situations. But I kept falling back on the idea that the Patriots have dealt with poor offensive line play throughout the year, and they've continued to overcome it. Now, they weren't as bad as they were last night, and it wasn't just on them, but certainly that was a big factor in it. They've overcome certain talent deficiencies. They've overcome, poor performances by certain positional groups throughout the year, but it was really overwhelming last night, and I certainly didn't see it going quite like that. I really was how the game unfolded itself, not necessarily the start of the game. The way the Patriots starting out slow and maybe having a stronger second half was something that I could definitely see happening. Even 6-0, 9-0, I'm still thinking, okay, they're kind of feeling them out there. They'll get something to break through. And I think we just kept waiting and waiting and waiting for the offense to break through. And it was like watching a tire spinning their wheels. And I'm going to use a ton of those metaphors today, because as the game progressed from there, I was expecting for the Patriots to put it in gear and then go ahead, and it was going to just go back and forth like that. But what ended up happening is it felt like as the lead expanded, it opened up what Seattle could do and put the Patriots into a more narrow box than they already were to begin with. And it looked like they were playing uphill the rest of the game. And it took the pressure off Darnold after kind of a shaky start. I thought they were going to get to him, and it looked like he was kind of due for a turnover. He was able to settle down. They were able to take a lot of the defensive performance and the lack of offense from New England took a lot of pressure off Darnold and the offense for Seattle. And, the Drake didn't look comfortable in the pocket from the jump. The pocket was collapsing. Wilson, Campbell, real rough night. There's a lot of different directions you can go, but the one thing Steve said, and something that maybe caught me off guard the most, Mike, is it didn't look like they were all that prepared. Like at the beginning, in the middle, towards the end of the game, they look overwhelmed from a talent perspective and a performance perspective. at the beginning, it looked like I was like, okay, well, they're just starting slow, keeping it simple, feeling out what the other team's doing. It's a boxing match, it's the dance, whatever. But then it just kind of looked like they didn't have an answer for what Seattle was doing. And that's what was probably the thing that was jarring the most for me.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at what Seattle did and how they were able to attack the Patriots. Not only did the Pats look like they weren't able to find an answer for the blitz, they looked like they were completely surprised by it. And that surprised me because I think coming into this game, we all expected Seattle to throw the blitz. Maybe not as much as they did, but I think we all expected them to utilize it to the best of their ability. And the Patriots even had trouble standing up and resisting, even when they were throwing only 4 men in a 4-man rush. So, when you have those types of problems, you're going to continue. It's going to be like quicksand. One thing's going to go wrong, then another, and you continue to see that all night long with the New England Patriots. Drake May was pressured on 52.8% of his dropbacks last night. That's an unheard of number. You can't have that in the Super Bowl and expect to be able to have success. So naturally, this Seattle defense was everything we expected them to be. 4 down, zone base, nickel defense, the pressurized packages that they can throw at you and pressure the quarterback. They did that all to a T last night. And New England's lack of being able to find an answer for it only enhanced the mythical quality that's going to surround this Seattle defense now in the job they did against the New England Patriots last night. Not taking anything away from them. They deserve the hype. They deserve the Super Bowl title. They won. They were the better team without any question in Super Bowl 60. But New England's lack of preparedness and lack of being able to adjust really kind of played into their hands as well.
Yeah, it's funny you use the term quicksand. I've said that a lot. I started out with spinning the tires. You mentioned quicksand. I chuckled because I said that before. I said it looked like they were trying to fight a riptide. It looked like they were trying to run a hill on a beach. It was just like, it just looked everything the Patriots tried to do offensively. It looked impossible. And you just couldn't figure it out. It became more and more obvious to me as the game progressed. Every series, every possession by each team, it's like in a boxing match, it's like a round, right? And so whether it's the Patriots offense, Seattle defense, or Seattle offense, Patriots defense, it felt like each of those series, each of those rounds of that boxing match, Seattle was getting a point each time. Whether it was their defense getting a negative play at some point that derailed the drive, whether it was their offense just doing something as simple as Sam Darnold simply being able to hang in the pocket and get the ball for a 7 or 8 yard gain and just an easy completion that set up those 3rd and shorts that Steve was pounding his fist about, really coming on for a little while now. And having Seattle keeping them those 3rd and longs, they were doing it because they were able to just get those chunk plays. And they did a good job on Kenneth Walker at times. The problem was they let him get to the edge far too much. Rabel said it at the halftime report with the sideline reporter, or the name's escaping me. And, it looked like they were doing a good enough job kind of keeping him in until they weren't. And the problem is with a guy like Walker and his speed and ability is once you get to that corner, his ability to turn upfield was good. And I thought there were a lot of missed tackles by the Patriots defense. I mean, there were very few things, first and foremost, to put on anything other than the offense in this game. But the missed tackling was something that caught me off guard a little bit too. I thought there was at least 4 or 5 plays in this game that stood out where it looked like they were going for these leg tackles, like these leg one-arm tackles, and these Seattle players were just going through 1-2 guys before they're being brought down. So it was small things like that where it was like Seattle had every single advantage as you kind of keep going down the path, Steve.
Yeah, and look, it was, for the Patriots offense, it was kind of like the perfect storm, right? The offensive line, was pretty terrible last night, and I thought Josh McDaniels was going to be able to figure it out, but he couldn't, and I think Drake May just got overwhelmed because even when they didn't have pressure on him, there was plays out there he just flat out missed them. It wasn't until the fourth quarter And I texted you at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I was like, I'm worried that they were going to get shut out. Look, in regard, I see the comment by Quig. When it comes to Will Campbell, look, he's probably not 100%. But the bottom line between him, Jared Wilson, they're kids. I mean, Will Campbell was 21 years old until January. He's just a kid, and he needs to get a lot stronger. And I know, like, everybody is jumping on the bandwagon on him, and he had a terrible game last night, and nobody's sugarcoating that. But I mean, him and Wilson need to get a lot stronger, and they will. Their second year in the league, they'll go through that strength and conditioning program, and they'll get stronger. But look, Seattle. I mean, they had all the answers last night. The Patriots didn't have any, and I give Sam Darnold a lot of credit because, as you mentioned, look, they had a lot of pressure on him as well. But even when he didn't complete the passes, he was getting away, and they weren't getting those sacks to put them in the bad situation. And Seattle did what the Patriots defense did through the first couple of games of the playoffs, right? Once they got a team in that, negative situation, second and long, third and long, they unleashed the hounds. And that's what Seattle was doing last night. And I kept thinking to myself, this is exactly what the Patriots defense was doing all through the playoffs. And, they smelled blood in the water, and they were getting after it. The Patriots were trying to do that, but Darnold was getting away. Even, like I said, even the ones he didn't complete. And, until late in the game, his completion percentage was under 50%. They were doing a great job with that.
Right.
But, but they weren't getting home. They weren't getting those sacks. And that's how turnovers happen too. We see it with Drake made twice, right? The strip sack, and they said it was an interception. I thought it was a fumble, but whatever. However you want to call it, it was still a return for a touchdown. Because they were getting home and the Patriots weren't. And that's where that's where you tip your hat to the other team, because they were the much better team last night. And I know no one wants to hear that today, but you watch that game, there can't be any doubt in your mind that the better team won.
Well, look, I mean, I think that's a good point, and you both have kind of mentioned this, so I feel like it's important. Okay, I think the Patriots hurt themselves a lot in this game, but anyone coming away saying, I mean, you can look at it and say they missed opportunities. You can look at it and say, it was just a really bad performance, and it was just kind of perfect storm situation. Absolutely. But we're not that kind of show. We're going to give credit to Seattle. I mean, they deserve all the credit in the world. I mean, I think we were all I don't want to speak for you guys, but I think we were all in agreement that Seattle was top to bottom better roster. At least that was certainly my take. I don't want to, so I'll say that I thought the roster top to bottom, the talent was there for Seattle. I just thought the way the Patriots were going to match up and perform was going to be different. But Seattle executed exactly what they needed to do. Their game plan was tremendous. And Mike McDonald deserves a lot of success. Sam Darnold, pat on the back as well for the way he was able to get it done. And just in general, they built their team. John Schneider did a tremendous job building that team, so they deserve that. I just wanted to say that for the record that, obviously the Patriots show, we're going to focus on them, but they do deserve their flowers for that win. That was a heck of a
Hey, they played their butts off last night.
But as far as the Campbell Wilson things go, look, before Will Campbell, man, there were some good memes going around. Okay, I can appreciate I can appreciate the jokes. I hope he stayed offline for his sake last night, because people were rough. I think it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I get really upset when Patriots fans or NFL fans jump down people for just an offensive line performance on one guy. Next Gen Stats had Will Campbell with 14 pressures allowed in the game. The most of any player. That would be the most of any player allowed in a game this postseason on any team. PFF had Will Campbell for 3 pressures allowed. So my point is, do I think Will Campbell had a good game? No, I think he had a really rough game. Could be hurt. I think the offensive line in general didn't play good. I thought Wilson struggled. It's really dangerous and really kind of reckless. And using next gen stats and PFW was kind of my point here. You can all these different entities and we can all have our own opinions because we all have eyeballs and we're educated fans watching the game, but we don't really know exactly who everything's on, who effed up somewhere. There was a play where Seattle, Drake was in shotgun, Drake dropped back, or not, Drake hiked the ball. Devin Witherspoon was in the slot for Seattle, inched up forward before the snap, and he blitzed off the corner, and he split. It looked like, I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think he split between Campbell and Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, because I could be misremembering, because it could be Campbell and a tight end.
No, it was Campbell and Wilson, and I remember that play.
Okay, thank you.
I thought that they messed up on that play.
Well, because my point is, traditionally, and I'm glad you remember this, because my point is that most coaches and most ways it's taught is that you want to let the farthest guy to the side go. If you're going to have a free blitzer, you don't want it coming. You don't want Witherspoon the one to get through the B gap between Campbell and Wilson. You would want to allow the guy going on the left side of Campbell on the defensive right side to go ahead and go the longest way. But anyway, I guess it's just all that to say the fact that it's really hard to know unless you're the Patriots coaching staff and the scheme of whatever everyone's assignments were to go. But it doesn't matter, because look, they got their ass kicked. I mean, sometimes we thought it was going to be a fist fight, and it was a fist fight. It was just one-sided, I mean, and it felt more like a stranglehold, to be honest. I mean, it was like the Seahawks style. They were just kind of feeling them out. And then it was just kind of like, all right, well, you can fight all you want, but you're not doing anything. We're just going to choke you out. Patriots got a couple of good licks in, and then that was it. That Seattle put them back to bed. I mean, that was about as simple as it got. Mike, any take on anything to do with that?
Yeah, look, I think bottom line, Will Campbell is the easy whipping boy today, right? You mentioned it. The subjective stats that are going around, where pressures and who's responsible for what, can be very swaying one way or another. The internet memes and the social media memes going around, like you said, can sway people's opinion one way or another. This guy thinks that Will Campbell is responsible for it. So, yeah, I'm going to subscribe to that theory because they got a blue check mark. They know what they're doing. I should really pay attention to them. Use your eyes, use your common sense when it comes to this. And I think this is the essence of the argument for the New England Patriots. And look, I don't think there's any other way around it. Anybody wondering about Will Campbell and his potential future with the team after what we saw last night, so many people are willing to scrap this and say, you got to move him inside the guard. That's where he's natural. He's not a left tackle. Well, I'll ask you this. The New England Patriots need to ask themselves as to whether or not a 22-year-old Will Campbell, fresh off a rookie season, one in which he suffered an MCL injury, which no one here or no one anywhere really knows the degree to which was serious or not, or how difficult it was for him to come back, get on the field, and still play through it. I did not see the same type of lateral movement and the same push and the same strength from Will in the second half of the season and into the playoffs that I saw before Week 12 when he hurt the MCL against the Cincinnati Bengals. You have to ask yourself if that guy has given you everything you possibly could hope for at left tackle, and it simply wasn't good enough. Has he reached his ceiling? Has he given you everything he can give, and there's simply nothing more there? I don't think you can go 1 year on a guy that's only 22 years old and say he's given us everything he can at that position. He doesn't deserve another shot. We have to scrap this, and we have to make sure that we move on. Now, to your point, Derek, and I think you make an excellent one, we don't see what most of the coaching staff sees, most of which the coaching staff sees, basically. We're not seeing everything. We don't know what it's like behind closed doors in those areas of practice that aren't allowed media access. So they're the only ones that can really make this decision. Josh McDaniels, obviously Doug Marrone, Mike Vrabel at the top of the heap. You throw in the Patriots brain trust, they have to evaluate whether or not what they've seen from Will is the best they're ever going to get. If that is the case, then they don't just have an obligation to have a conversation. In my opinion, they have an obligation to address the situation. And that's something they'll have to do either through free agency or through the draft, but they need to make a move there. If that's not the case, then where do you look? Do you look at the guard position and say, Jared Wilson is a much better fit as a center. We need to kick him into his natural position and invest opportunities to go after the guard position? That I may be able to take a little bit more palading to, because Jared is a natural center, and that is where he is at his best. They got some great contributions this year from Garrett Bradbury, so these are going to be difficult decisions for the Patriots to make, but they've got to have them. But to put all of this on Campbell last night and say that, a rough postseason is enough to take this kid's job completely away from him and move him inside to a position, which, by the way, he's never played. I don't know. I think that's a little knee-jerk. I think that's a little Monday morning quarterback, and I think that's a little premature. So Pat's got some decisions to make. They're the ones making them, folks. If you're grimacing at what I'm saying, I can relate and I can understand, but at the same time, they're the ones that are going to have to make it.
Yeah, and a lot of the people that are saying those things, Mike, were the ones that were complaining all along about the extra, or I should say, the less than half inch of arm length. And look, I watched that game last night. Do you think his arm length had anything to do with DeMarcus Lawrence pushing him backwards?
No, not one. I agree with what you said, Steve. He's got to get stronger. He needs to bulk up. He needs to get the right strength. Yeah.
He wasn't losing the battle because he was getting slipped under or, beat to the outside. He was getting pushed backwards. And there's the difference there.
Yeah, but the other thing about that, you're talking about Campbell though, right?
Yeah, but the other thing about Campbell last night, I'm watching the game, because all the talk was, oh, well, Campbell's having a rough game. They kept saying that, and then I'm watching the snaps. He was not reacting well to the snap. Whether it was the snap count, the silent snap count, that he was off, because he looked like he was late on a good portion of those snaps.
Mitchell Schwartz, who was an offensive lineman for I think a couple places, but I know he was last with the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
He tweeted out last night with some pretty decent insight. He was just saying that he thinks that Campbell's going to be a good player, but he thinks he mentioned something about being late too, and he felt like he looked like he was trying to play catch up, like a lot of during the reps, like his timing was kind of thrown off. I'll see if I can find it. I thought it was interesting. And Willie Anderson, another pass rusher, Willie Anderson, the former veteran offensive lineman, he said something kind of similar. He thinks he's still going to be a good tackle in the league. He just thinks that he's just not basically getting set up quick enough. He looked like he was a snippet too slow. Yeah. Well, Willie Anderson's point was that if you're a longer arm tackle, you can have a later reaction time because your length makes up for the reaction time. But if you have shorter arms and you're late, it's really hard to play catch up. So it's kind of like both. It's kind of like both what those two guys said. I thought it was just interesting points. I mean, just from people that have no connection to the Patriots, as former guys who were in the league for extended periods of time, I'm not saying it's be all end all, but as someone who's done it, I thought it was worth holding weight. They both brought up very kind of similar points. So
I always buy into the guys who played the game, because
of course,
they know the game. They know what they're seeing, and
Campbell going back to LSU, a lot of when you see him go kind of like when he kind of sets for pass protection, and like the way he like steps back, it almost looks like he's getting pushed back right away. Like he's almost anticipating going for that, like what they would call like a vertical set. where he's like kind of like squaring off quickly, and he's taking like that initial blow because I think he's reacting a little late to your point, Steve, and he gets hit. And last night he was getting hit and he was actually having to step, actually almost like an extra step. He was actually being walked backwards on a couple of those. There's a few of them going around. There's a few accounts going around, but if you find you can find on X or on social media isolated just Will Campbell every snap and pass protection.
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
Yep.
You can see where the mistakes were made. He couldn't hold on to blocks long enough. He was late to show up. He was getting run backwards. It wasn't all bad, but he was a disaster, and Wilson were a disaster as a whole. In the line, I mean, the line again, they were so bad that the focus is going to be on them, but
even Morgan Moses didn't have a good game last.
I don't think so. No. I don't think any of them really did.
Agreed.
But you know, I was just looking at the game as it was unfolding, and I'm sitting here and thinking to myself, Mike Vrabel got every ounce of what he could out of this roster. Like, he tapped into them, got maximized every bit of talent. And we've all said this term in the past regarding teams of the Patriots in the past, where this, the sum of the whole is greater than the parts. And I think that they were able to take on teams throughout the regular season to this point with greater talent than them because they were able, as playing as a team, to elevate themselves. And last night they couldn't elevate because it started up front and then went to the quarterback and it kind of crumbled from within. And when you have cracks in that foundation like that, consistently the entire game, like it wasn't like it was like an overwhelming Seattle, like this came out of nowhere in the second half. It was like basically wire to wire. Seattle won up front, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Mike, anything to add to that? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think to your point, Derek, everything that you've mentioned, and I think you've made excellent points, really along the whole offensive line. But no. There's a lot of wisdom and counsel that comes from that side of the coin right here, folks. But what are the common elements there? And I think, Steve, you'll be in agreement with me on this. They're fixable elements. They are elements that the Patriots can fix with training, with a proper game plan, with working individually with these guys. Campbell, the same thing. I mean, what did Jessup say in A Few Good Men? We're going to train the lad. I think taking a guy who's not quite up to the challenge and shipping him off to another assignment puts Drake May's life in danger. I flubbed that. I didn't want to flub that, but damn it. But bottom line, in that regard, and when you look at what happens at that point, that's exactly what they need to do with extra training and maybe, getting Will in the weight room a little bit, helping him to anchor a little bit more. That's going to give him the push that he needs to be able to push back. I didn't see anything that short arm length is not going to be able to cure. And I think it goes back to the point earlier where I don't think this kid has reached his ceiling as a left tackle in the NFL just yet. And at that point, to ship him off and to make a permanent, which at this point would be a permanent, because you don't want this kid going back and forth and saying, you're a tackle, you're a guard, you're a tackle, you're a guard. You're going to screw him up. And that's not what you want. And if that be the case and you're moving them around like a chess piece, then you've wasted a 4th round pick. I don't think the Patriots would do that. And I think the front office is way too smart. And the powers that be on the field are way too smart to ever let that happen. But I think you owe it to at least see what you got this year into training camp, into the preseason, into the early part of the regular season, and look at what this kid truly is. They've got to address the line. They've got to address that depth, get some veteran tackles in here that can be able to spell him if you need to. If you think Lowe is going to be a guy that can do it, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I think Vidarian held up very well. But if you want someone with a little bit more of a permanent pedigree, maybe that's a discussion to be had. But at this point, I don't think a move inside the guard is something that is imminent. To me, that's just a knee jerk.
So prior to the game, I would have said the Patriots' biggest quote unquote needs, or what they need things to address, in whatever capacity. You can make the case for, you can put it whatever order you want. I think they needed to, add some pass rush help, add some kind of an edge rusher. I would have said a pass catcher, whether that's receiver or tight end, and I would have said offensive line help. I think all three of those you can make a case after watching last night's game. But regardless of last night's game, I wouldn't have changed it before or after the game. I still thought those kind of things were it. I've heard a lot of people talk about what you just mentioned about Will Campbell already moving. Like, okay, well, that's it. He's a guard. For one, you don't, in my mind, draft a guy 4th overall to move him without having at least one full offseason in the NFL. So it's like he played one season, and we'll call it one season, even though he missed a little bit because of the knee injury, but because of the postseason makes up for it, he essentially got one full year of starting reps, up and down performance at times. Obviously, brutal postseason, could be hurt. We'll see. I'm going back with him next year at left tackle. I'm rolling him back out at left tackle. Now, if you want to go ahead and say after next year, it's still up and down and you're not seeing him click, you have that conversation after 1 year. I don't think you do that now. And then you can talk about kicking him over to left guard and kicking Wilson over. I think Wilson needs to go to center regardless. I still think that could be their plan, which, again, we can have conversation about that. The point about Vidarian Lowe, I think, is interesting. And the reason I'm sandwiching all these thoughts together is because they're all kind of intertwined. I was texting with my cousins last night, and they were asking, do you think the Patriots should bench Will Campbell for Vidarian Lowe? And I saw that floated by a couple fans online too. And I think that's an incredibly slippery slope and a weird thing to manage, because on the surface, you could say, Will, sit down for a minute, catch your breath. Vidarian's going in for you, and just see if Vidarian can go ahead and stop the bleeding and give May a second to breathe, have him calm down, and the offense can kind of orchestrate. The problem with that is, what does it do to Will? What does it do to Will Campbell moving forward? I think that not everyone responds to that situation well, with the Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama quarterback thing from several years back. That's a really hard thing to manage, especially in the middle of the game like that. I just think it's really risky and can backfire. Steve, any thoughts on any of that stuff?
Well, and again, if Seattle was only getting pressure off the left tackle, then you could have that conversation during the game. But it wasn't just from left tackle. Right. It was everywhere. They were beating everybody last night. And what are you going to do? Put all backups in? Yeah. I mean, Morgan Moses has been so good all year long. And then, he gave up 2 sacks last night. I mean, Garrett Bradbury gave up a sack. So, I mean, it's not like it was only coming from one spot.
I'd have to go back and look at it, Steve, but it felt like
they brought pressure from everywhere last night. And so, I mean, to single out Will Campbell would have been, I think, a really bad move. And that's something
He's just a whipping boy right now. I mean, that's all it is. He's a whipping boy right now, right? I mean, I agree with you.
Right, but that's not something I would see Mike Vrabel doing. Yeah, and like pinpointing it. Oh, okay, we're going to just take you out. No, because it was coming from everywhere last night.
I mean, I'd have to go back and look at it because I haven't gone back to watch the game a second time yet. I thought Garrett Bradbury and Morgan Moses, if it wasn't their worst game of the season for both of them, I thought it was in the top 3. I think those are both. I thought both of those guys struggled immensely, and I didn't really hear a whole lot from Onwenu, but I do remember a couple of plays that kind of had no holes opening up the middle ish. So again, it's hard to really look at all that stuff with just going off, just a live performance of it all. Right. But we've said what we need to say about the offensive line, but whatever. Do we want to be? If we want, we can do the Boston radio. I haven't listened to a single thing for as far as local sports talk radio in the Boston area or New England area would be today. But if we want to play the game and be that, we can just play a game and sit here and say who's to blame. So let's just do that for 3 seconds. Who's to blame?
It's not a blame game. It's Seattle was a much better team last night.
Right.
And again, like I said, I mean, they overwhelmed the offensive line, and I think we've covered that. But again, I was really surprised that Josh McDaniels couldn't figure out some way of alleviating that. And then, it just got too much for Drake May. I mean, he's only in his second year. He's still a kid himself at 23, and he got overwhelmed last night. He did not have a good game. Now, he made a couple of nice throws in the fourth quarter, but, the first three quarters were not there. And he also made a couple of bad throws in the fourth quarter as well. But he did not have a good game. I mean, that touchdown pass and the pass before that to Mac Hollins was those were beauties. But other than that, he did not have a good game. And he padded his stats with a lot of garbage time yardage. But Seattle, they took away everything, and the wide receivers did not have a great game either.
No, there was no separation. There was very little separation. The windows were incredibly tight for Drake to throw into.
Right.
And like I said, it was a compounding issue.
Yeah,
and
it was everybody last night. And look, the one guy on offense that I was really happy with last night was Mac Hollins again. And I friggin' love that guy. I was so glad when they signed him. And I didn't see anything all season long that would change my mind about it. He was their top guy last night. In fact, he led all wide receivers in, yardage last night in the Super Bowl. In a game with JSN, Mac Hollins leads the game in reception.
I want to get. I mean, Drake May's arm. Drake May's arm is. I don't want to sit here and say that it was, I don't know how bad it was. I don't really want to blame it on just the injury. I think it was bothering him even more than I anticipated based on some of it. I didn't know if they were going to need to shoot it up. It seemed like it wasn't even that bad. I thought Drake May looked terrified at the beginning of the game to make a mistake. And I was having a hard time at the very beginning decide if it was Vrabel and Josh keeping training wheels on, kind of similar to how like they did with Mac Jones not throwing into the end zone when he was early in his tenure with the Patriots, or like Drake was so scared of turning the ball over, he got totally gun shy, and I was kind of leaning more towards that. And the longer the game went on, I was like, yeah, Drake it's like, Drake, you got to get rid of this ball quicker. You got to get rid of the ball quicker. And like that first sack, you could make the argument the first Patriots offensive possession was their best drive of the first half. I mean, like they were moving the ball consistent for. There was like, okay, you're running the ball, you're able to go ahead and handle, get a couple of completions, and then you take that sack, negative yardage, and that set you back, and then that was kind of it. And it was just like any positive play, Seattle consistently immediate response. Like it was tough. It was really tough to watch. But to your point on JSN, Christian Gonzalez made himself some money last night. I don't want to sit here and, I mean, look, the Patriots defense deserves a lot of credit. I did think we talked about the missed tackles. I certainly thought the edge containment was rough at times. Although Steve, your boy Anthony Jennings, I thought showed up last night, but a little bit.
They were running that chase on last night.
Yeah, but the defensively missed some tackles. They got to the edges too much, and a couple of big plays that you'd like to have back. But overall, the defense for the Patriots played well. But Christian Gonzalez, the job he did last night, pretty much one of the few guys I'd actually like to give a good shout out to for how he performed in the game. He certainly is going to be getting a lot of money here come shortly, Mike.
Yeah, without any question. $32 million may not be enough for Christian and the job that he did last night. I mean, you look at two of the initial drives of the Seattle Seahawks; those go for touchdowns. If Christian does not make pass breakups, the one that he made on Shaheed was absolutely amazing. I mean, that photo is going to live in his portfolio for the rest of his life, and it should. It really is a monster photo with him using that one arm to break that down. That was a thing of beauty. And Christian, again, continues to remain in lockstep with his prey. He never lets him get out of the way because Christian never takes his eye off the quarterback until the ball leaves his hand. And he's got such an amazing knack to be able to whip his head around, not only maintain field awareness, but also maintain awareness of who he needs to cover, and he gets there. And you saw that last night. Tremendous game for Christian Gonzalez, who, to me, has been one of their more reliable defenders all year long. And we're speaking of reliable, Steve, I'm going to take a page out of your book, and a guy you mentioned earlier, Greg Woodson, is absolutely solidifying himself as a force in that safety tandem. I believe he led the team in tackles last night.
Yep,
and continues to be all over the field. And he's such a versatile piece, and he can get up and play at the line. He can play, in the middle part of the field, and he can, drop back into coverage and be a solidified defensive back when he needs to be as well. This kid was a 4th rounder, and not a whole lot of people wanted him because of every other perceived need that the Patriots had at the time. He's looking like one of their best picks so far. I mean, you can make the argument he may have been their rookie of the year, even over guys
tackles.
like Travion and Will. It's amazing what he's been able to do this year. So Patriots got themselves some keepers in that defensive backfield, but it all begins and ends with Christian Gonzalez. It was just an amazing performance, capping, in my opinion, a tremendous season.
Steve?
Yeah, Woodson, 10 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 pass defended.
He was terrific.
Yes.
Early, too. Early and consistent.
And a lot of people thought that was a reach in the 4th round. And I don't think anyone's reaching anymore for that.
No way.
I think that kid has been, he led the defense all season long in snap percentage. I mean, the guy has turned into quite a player as a rookie. And again, I thought him and Christian Gonzalez were outstanding.
Yeah, him, Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, I thought had a decent game at times.
Yeah, good too.
Carlton Davis.
Marcus Jones, he let up a couple of plays. Man, he was so close, as typically is the case for Marcus Jones. Early in that game, he needed about one more of his hands on top of one of his hands. He was about 4 inches away
from picking off that very first pass.
That first little out route. I thought it was going the other way.
I thought it was too when I saw it.
When he let go, I was like, if that ball, and I think it was Collinsworth who said it on the broadcast, where it's man, that was a dangerous throw, because if that goes if he catches it, that, and obviously doesn't trip, he's gone. So that we talk about a game changer there. And I mean, he just came up.
And actually, when I saw that, I thought he actually had his hand in. He had the right distance, but the ball went over his hand. So it was that close. And I mean, they were intent on trying to jump the routes last night and force a couple of turnovers. And look, they didn't make it. They missed out on those opportunities, but hey, that's why you play the game. I thought the defense played well enough to win last night, because you look, the only offensive touchdown Seattle scored last night, they only went 37 yards because that was the strip sack, the fumble. So, again, I mean, look, that I thought the defense was good last night. It wasn't their best performance, but they had some missed tackles, as Derek was pointing out. But they held. If you had told me they were going to lose by multiple touchdowns, I would have thought JSN was going to go off on them.
Yeah.
And
he averaged somewhere in the low 90s or high 90s in the mid 90s. Like he was just under basically 100 yards a game. So I think they were talking about it on Patriots Unfiltered at some point. It's like, hey, just keep under 100. It's like you call it a win.
Yeah, and look, they did a great job on him. It was offensively they couldn't get out of their own way.
I just kept expecting, there were so many times, Steve, where Drake was like dropping back, and I don't know. It's like I just was expecting Josh or something, or Mike or somebody on the offensive staff to kind of go ahead and just switch it up a little bit. They started going a lot of shotgun. Um, I just thought they were going to go ahead and try to spin the dial a little bit more offensively. Maybe because Seattle came out so strong so fast early in that game, it took away what they were kind of hoping to do as a wrinkle, and they felt like they couldn't do it for whatever reason. Or maybe I kept saying Vrabel talked to the offensive guys, and he kept saying to the player, like guys on offense, he's like, guys, calm down, calm down. So like maybe they just thought the guys were just cracking like under pressure and they couldn't execute basic stuff. So why even try to introduce something more elaborate? My only contention to that was on the two back-to-back throws that Holland scored that touchdown. By May, those two big passes, that's the kind of offense where they've kind of had all year, where they weren't afraid to drop back and let May rip it, because at some point you're down 12-0. It's not, you don't have to heave it up 40 yards downfield every play, but this is someone in your young quarterback who's who's proved to be the most accurate deep ball thrower in the league this season. And they built an offense on bigger chunk plays more than they ever had done the previous couple of years. And they just looked like they were terrified of doing it, unless, for one, when they broke through and finally did it, or B, when they kind of had to at the end of the game when it was kind of garbage time. What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, I think in all fairness to Josh and his staff, I think they tried doing that. And I noticed this last night when I watched the broadcast back a little bit. And this is just the broadcast, this is not the official film. So I'll probably see things in that I haven't seen yet. But when you look at what the Patriots tried to do, four series, particularly toward the end of the first half and toward the beginning of the second half, you see Drake taking a deep shot, or trying to take a deep shot down the field, or he's looking there, well covered, unable to get the guy that he's looking for in that regard, whether it's Diggs, whether it's Booty. There were opportunities that were missed there. You either try to run the ball or try to get a quick pass, get into a manageable situation, and then after that, there's a half concept on the field where Drake just simply misses the opportunity, or they weren't able to do that. So I think the coaching staff was trying to dial up these situations. I think it was, again, a lot of credit to the Seattle Seahawks, who did a great job of anticipating what the Patriots were going to do. And like you said, Derek, maybe a little apprehension on behalf of the players, especially Drake, to take that deep shot and not want to make the mistake and have it go the opposite way. So I think the Patriots were confident in their ability to utilize the deep pass, but I think when they tried to do it, it was after the run game wasn't really working early enough to kind of facilitate play action and get things set up the way they like to. I think when they tried to do it, it was in a spot where they were so afraid of making a mistake either way that was going to change the complexity of the game that they got a little gun shy.
Yeah, and again, to that matter, right? They scored the touchdown, then they stopped Seattle. They get the ball back, but it was on their own 4-yard line. And then they went 40 yards, and I'm thinking to myself, hey, they're going to make a game of this. As they've been badly outplayed all game long, but now you could see the momentum starting to turn, and then May made a terrible decision. I don't know where he was going with that ball that was intercepted, but I thought that was it right there. Game over.
Yeah,
you could see the air go out of their sails right then. Because right up until that spot, I was thinking to myself, they're going to make a game of this because, they couldn't do anything all game. They scored that touchdown in 3 quick plays. They get the ball back on their 4-yard line, and then they went all the way to like 45. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, things are starting to fall into place. And that was a killer. I mean, I don't know whether they would have won, but it would have been a little more interesting for sure.
Where do we want to go next, guys? Because there's a lot of things to do. We've obviously focused a lot. Well, you know what? I kind of want to talk about Vrabel a little bit too. Let's talk about the head coach. We could obviously sit and talk about, we could really dive into, a lot of things. And obviously the way the offense struggled last night, that's going to dominate the conversation. But Steve, what are your thoughts on Vrabel's, what we know to this point about Vrabel's message to the team, what we know about how he conducted himself on the sidelines, how he spoke to the media. There's anything about his decisions during the game. What jumped out at you throughout the week and the performance yesterday?
Well, I think all week long he did exactly, he followed along with the way he had been all season long. He was getting the players ready to go. And, the whole thing is with the Super Bowl week, it's a long process and you don't want to get too hyped too soon because, even like when you first come out on the field, in a normal game, you come out on the field, they do the national anthem, they kick the ball up. With the Super Bowl, you come out on the field, it's like 20 or 30 minutes before the kickoff. And I thought the way he handled everything all week long was perfect, just the way he'd been doing it all year long. And the message was, hey, we're in this together, and we're all going to stand together. And look, they just got outplayed last night, and I didn't have any issues with any of the decisions he made in the game because they just couldn't make anything work. And that's where you tip your cap to the other team. I think he had a fantastic year. I didn't have any issues with him all Super Bowl week with their preparation and the way he handled everything.
Well, that's just dead air then. I said, Mike, what about you?
I figured. I just said, you know what? If I start answering this and that's not what he asked me, that's going to be mistake number 3 for me, and then that's it.
It's 2-1. It's 2-1.
2-1. There we go. So, I'm in complete agreement with what Steve said. I think Mike Vrabel handled himself with a tremendous amount of class last night. It is not easy as a head coach, especially a head coach that is making his Super Bowl debut, to lose in the fashion your team lost and still go out there and say, we had a great year. It's one I'm really proud of. This game is not a reflection of our season. We were outcoached. We were outplayed. Give all the credit in the world to Seattle. But now we're going to use this as a teaching example. We're going to use this as a chance to get better. And he said it's only valuable. This loss is only valuable if we understand what it takes to get better, to really take this loss and build on it. Not just understand that we lost and that we have to be better. What do we have to do to be better? Really put a lot of solid effort and thought into what it's going to take for this team to get over that hump that they couldn't get over in this game and be able to neutralize a pressure-packed defense and be able to hold in check an offense with so many different types of weapons that can go off when they have the ability to do so. And that point, I think you're going to see not only the value in this loss for the Patriots, this is where you're really going to see the value in having someone like Mike Vrabel as the coach. So, and he knows that he's got to do a better job as well. He's not absolving himself from his sins. When you lose 29-13, it's everybody's fault, and he understands that as well. So for him to take that type of accountability and be able to utilize it into something that can be positive for this team moving forward, that's what you want in a head coach.
I'm with you there.
And to Chris's question, five Patriot players had Super Bowl experience before the game last night.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Super Bowl experience before the game. I have to think about exactly who that would be. I know one of them is obviously Milton Williams, Carlton Davis,
Matt Collins,
Austin Hooper,
Matt Collins, Austin Hooper, and who would be the fifth? Let me think about that one. I'll find it here in a second, I'm sure. So we'll have to see. So we know we got some of those.
I think it was Dearness. Didn't Dearness Johnson play in a Super Bowl or on a roster?
I don't know. We'll find out.
I know there was 5.
Yeah. The offensive snaps last night. Nothing. I don't know if anything really stood out. Did you guys think they were going to go jumbo with an extra tackle more, or no?
Yes.
I was a little surprised by that. I kept thinking it was like they were just like, okay, they're going to get theirs a little bit. We can use a tight end because we want to utilize that option for the passing game. I was thinking they were just going to try to do like a little like chip kind of leak out with the tight end where he just kind of hits the defensive end and just floats it into the flat, or does like a little curl route right in the soft zone, like just to pick up like 5-6 yards, which makes a lot of sense. But at some point I'm sitting there being like, where the hell is, like Hooper, like Hunter Henry, 72% of the snaps, Austin Hooper, 44% of the snaps. The next tackle or running back really is Munford at 1%. He had one. Yeah, that's it. So he had one offensive snap. So I'm like Jack Westover at
that was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it goes back to the adjustments. I just don't know. Unless the scary part about that, Mike,
Christian Ellis was number 5, by the way.
Oh, Christian Ellis, yes,
That's right. Yep.
Okay, good call. The thing that's scary about that, though, about not making adjustments, it's either they were too stupid to make an adjustment or to not make an adjustment, or too stubborn, or they felt like they had no other option. Like they were like, well, we really can't do this, because they had just no confidence in that alternative option, which is scary because that just goes to the lack of talent. I don't know. I mean, I guess I just kept thinking like, where is something else they could do? And it just didn't seem like, again, there really wasn't a whole lot working. And, you talk about finding answers to the test, and it just was continuously drawing blanks. Anything from the game that we haven't talked about, I was pleasantly surprised with the referees and the officials. I thought they pretty much stayed out of it. Anyone have any qualms with any specific calls or situations?
The calls, no, but there was that one that they should have called.
The punch to Diggs?
Yeah, well, and when he knocked him flat out of bounds, that should have been a penalty.
I thought it should have been a penalty.
It had no bearing on the game whatsoever.
No, of course, yeah. That's a good way to go ahead and phrase that.
They should have called that, and then he threw a punch, and
By the way, that NFL rule change is coming. By the way, as soon as they said that on the TV broadcast, because they slowed down and did the replay on the broadcast, and that's when I saw the punch come in. And as soon as the punch came in, I'm like, well, how do they not throw a flag? I'm like, well, and they said it's under review. I'm like, well, they're throwing it. They're throwing it now. And what did they say that if they
didn't throw a flag on the initial thing, that New York can't do that.
They can't intervene.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, that rule's that rule's coming.
But at the same time, again, it had no bearing on the game. And there was actually very few penalties in the game.
No, that's what I'm saying. Overall, I liked the style of play for the way the officials went about it. Let the players play, and they were consistent with the calls, which is, to me, the biggest thing. If you're going to if it's going to be a flag fest, then you better call it evenly. You just call it on both sides, right? But the better way is, if all the games were officiated like that, where more often than not, you let things go, just call the egregious ones and let the guys play. That's really how it should be. No one wants to see, the Super Bowl presented by Tide and flags, just it's laundry day all over the field. But so the officials seldomly get praise, but it's this, we're talking as the all-encompassing game. I would say that. What else do we want to touch on, gentlemen? I mean, again, we could keep pulling at the thread.
Well, the other area that I thought Seattle had a big advantage in last night was special team.
Yep. Field position too, but that was kind of more of the, but those things kind of go hand in hand, Steve, a little bit with
the punting by Seattle
Terrific.
I mean, put the Patriots in the hole all game long. They did such a great job of that. I mean, and I understand somewhat of what the Patriots were trying to do and keep the ball away from Shaheed.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they were losing the battle of field position constantly.
Right, and they were losing it, and the offense not being able to move the ball and consistently. But I thought Myers should have been MVP. I mean, I think Kenneth Walker. Nothing really taken away from him. He was very good in the game, but I'm sitting here being like, he was at 4. It was 12-0, but like 4 field goals. I'm like, he's got to be the MVP to this point, right? And then he hits the record-breaking 5. They scored 2 touchdowns, but he hit both extra points. So I'm sitting there. Even though Walker, I'm like, oh, he's eclipsed, 144 yards at the time. I don't know what he finished with exactly.
156.
Yeah, but it was like 144, and I'm like, man, he's been rolling this second half. He's had some big plays, but Myers has had 17 of Seattle's 29 points. So I was sitting there being like, is the kicker going to get the MVP? But I don't know. I thought the special teams, the punter and the kicker for Seattle, terrific. And look, I mean, again, that goes back to our discussion pregame. I had a lot of faith in the coaching staffs of both teams. I like the way both teams were built. I like the way they both wanted to play. And defensively and special teams, relatively tight operations consistently for both all throughout the year. And Seattle was just able to execute those little things. And it was those little execution details like Steve just highlighted too, which they compounded because they were winning all those little matchups. And those things just add on to each other. And it just made it almost impossible for the Patriots to see very many cracks of daylight to break through at any point in the game. Mike, what do you think?
Absolutely, without any question. And you look at what this team did all game long, and really, I think it's like a microcosm of what the team did all season long, plodding along, waiting for a team to make a mistake and then be able to capitalize on it. That never came for the Patriots last night. They were the ones that were trying to capitalize on early missed opportunities and difficulties in being able to break through, and it simply never arrived. When it did, it arrived too late, and then by that time, it was in panic mode, and that leads to more mistakes, and that's exactly what happened to the Pats last night. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot to look at when it comes to now the big picture of the offseason. How do we look at this team and say, okay, well, yeah, we need to fix this and fix that, but you also don't want to reinvent the wheel here too. They can't get too trigger happy with wanting to fix everything. There's a lot that needs to be maintained in status quo because Patriots did a lot of right things this year as well. So I think it's important for everyone to remember that we're all disappointed in the way this ended and the way the Patriots were not able to, perform at a high level in the Super Bowl, but it shouldn't erase all the good that they did to get themselves here.
No, and that's a good way to I kind of put a bow on the show per se. I want to say that was well said, and it perfectly leads to kind of the end of this. I want to say before we even have this conversation that for those who are listening live, and we have a decent amount of people listening live. So first of all, thank you for listening to the show and joining us. I want to say here on the show that why people are listening live. We do the show all through the off season too. And we are gonna break down. I know we got the full first off season here as Patriots No Huddle with 3 of us in the fold here to really go through it. But I mean, for those of you who were with Steve and I in the past, decade of us doing podcasts together, we've been
decade and a half.
Yeah, really. We've been cruising through the offseason. We love the team building aspect that I know Mike does as well. So there's, as Mike just said, a lot of time to break down how to improve the roster. So the next show, I want to give a bigger kind of macro view of the season as a whole and talk about a lot of the good things the team did, because they did. One bad game does not take away from what they accomplished this season. And for those people who are, really down right now. Look, I get it. I mean, there's no you go from such a euphoric high and excitement level of a postseason run and getting to the Super Bowl and the buildup and the chance of being able to become a champion at the end of the season, to go from that to lose, especially in the fashion in which you lost. It's a very big emotional roller coaster. It's a huge swing. So trust me, if you're listening to the show, I'm sure everyone's feeling the same way. But I do think it's important to look at the whole. And the silver lining to me, it doesn't take away. If you want to feel better, a little bit better as a Patriots fan, if you want to look as a takeaway to the season, and we'll talk about this more next week, is they still ended up with 17 wins on the year. They were able to win the division, able to win multiple playoff games, host multiple playoff games, win at a place that they've had almost no success against, a team in Denver to get to the Super Bowl. And have Drake May in the MVP conversation, have Vrabel win Coach of the Year, get recognized by other players around the league. And I do think you are a more attractive destination than you were a year ago, and the future is bright to build. So that would be my little bit of kind of positive spin as a macro view. For fans that are listening to the show who are feeling a little down, there's still a lot of good things to take away.
Absolutely.
Steve, any thoughts on that? And any kind of final
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, look, of all the teams that make the playoffs, only one wins their last game of the year.
Yep.
And they ran into a better team last night, and Seahawks outplayed them. And you have to, as Vrabel said, you have to learn from it. So it doesn't take away from a fantastic year that they had this year. And look, we'll break down the whole season. We'll get to that. And now, they have to turn the page really quickly because the NFL Combine is 2 weeks from today.
23rd. Yep.
Right. It's gonna come quick. So again, we'll announce, soon when our next show is gonna be, and we'll talk about it off air a bit here. But our next show, we'll talk about the season as a whole, and then we're gonna get right into, as you just said, Steve, the combine, the draft, talk about that, talk about free agency. Man, a ton to unpack.
Free agency is a month from today.
Yeah. So hold on. I mean, if you're listening today, hold on, because we again are going to continue this all throughout the months to come, and I'm excited about that. As far as my final thoughts on the game goes, and then Mike, if you want to take us out, I mean, for me, disappointing end to a very good season, but again, a lot to learn from, and tip your hat to Seattle. They were just ultimately the better team. They came to execute. It's easy right now with the wounds fresh. It feels pretty raw right now. Emotionally for players, fans, everyone. But when we take a step back and look at it, eventually, they turned into a pumpkin at midnight. Unfortunately, and the Cinderella story had to end. And as Steve had to say, one team wins, one team loses. That's how this game works. And we've been lucky enough to be on both sides of, just to get there, to be on both sides of those outcomes. But we've also had our fair share of wins in those moments too, and that's just how it goes. So we'll get into that. Mike, any final thoughts for you, man, and you know how to wrap it up?
Absolutely. And I think the guys have said it best, folks. The New England Patriots definitely had a disappointing end to what seemed like a magical season and a touch of destiny that surrounded this team all year long. But let's not forget that this 2025 New England Patriots team, they defied the odds. They defied the naysayers every step of the way toward the season, into the playoffs. They improved from a 4-13 record just 1 year earlier. And the fan base being upset that they actually won the last game of the year because it disrupted their draft positioning to rooting for the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl against what ended up being a superior team. And you got to tip your cap to the Seattle Seahawks, and congratulations to them and their fans on a great season and on their winning Super Bowl 60 and bringing home the title to the Emerald City. As for the Patriots, they're only the 15th team in NFL history to reach a Super Bowl the year after finishing with a losing season. So definitely something to keep on the horizon. This team plays mostly disciplined, mostly fundamentally sound football. They can make a tweak here and there with Mike Vrabel at the helm and Drake May as their quarterback. The future is bright for this squad, and continue to support them because they're going to need it in the course of the next couple of months, kind of get over that bitter taste of a bad loss in the Super Bowl. But the Patriots have the stuff it takes to get back to that level, and probably a lot sooner than most fans would think. A lot sooner than the ones in Western New York would care to believe. But that's a conversation for another day, folks. As Derek and Steve said, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules all season long to join us here on Patriots No Huddle and make us a daily, weekly, monthly part of your New England Patriots coverage. Good news is, folks, the best is yet to come. So stay locked in. Definitely subscribe. Hit the like button, whatever you need to do to make sure that you're not missing a single second of the action here on Patriots No Huddle. On behalf of Derek Havens and my Patriots paisan, Steve Balistrieri, I'm Mike Debate, reminding all of you to stay safe, stay well, be the change you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you back here again next time on Patriots No Huddle.